Good morning. Hi, I'm Lee. I'm a New Zealander who lives in the East Riding of Yorkshire, and this is my podcast about my handmade life. I'm on Instagram as Luli _ and on Ravelry as Luli. I have an Etsy shop where I sell knitting accessories, so needle cases and notions cases and things like that, and that's at Shop Luli on Etsy. And you can find links to all of my online places at luli.com. Welcome. It's really nice to have you here to spend a little bit of time chatting with me about knitting. And this week is the sock episode again. I've started to realise recently with my sock episodes just how much time I spend just knitting socks. So just a quick update at the top of the show, a shop update. I have put some more pre-orders for pencil cases into my shop, and I'll be making those up next week. So if you missed out last time, then you can pop over there and pick up one of my pencil cases or large notions cases. They're the same thing. They're just bigger than my normal notions case, and they're big enough to fit pencils and pens in. So yeah, if you're interested in that, then you can follow the link below and pop over to my shop and pick one up for yourself. And as I say, they'll be posted out next Friday. This is community news. Over in the Ravelry group, we have the Advent mini skein swap running along, and last week I paired up everybody for the first round of swaps. So if you haven't popped over to the Ravelry group to see who your swap partner is, then you can pop over and take a look. I'll be opening the thread for Q2 in April. Yeah, so you can look forward to that. I think some people may already have their swap packages, which is quite fun. It's fun to see them on Instagram. We had a hashtag for that, and I shall find out what it was and put it down here. We also have Knit 1000 grams running in the Ravelry group, which is a challenge that ran from the 1st of December and goes until the Edinburgh Yarn Festival to knit a kilo of stash yarn. And many of you have achieved your goal, but I was looking through the thread yesterday and I noticed that some of you haven't updated for a while. So there is a prize. Basically I draw a prize winner on my way to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival on the Wednesday. I forget what date that is. And then I do a little bit of shopping for that person. I just get them something small from the marketplace. Yeah, and it's dead fun. I generally trawl through people's project pages to see what sort of things I think they would enjoy and like. And then, yeah, send them a little something special from Edinburgh. Also, if you're going to the festival and you'd like to donate something to the Knit 1000 grams prize, then that would be awesome. Yeah, if you're a maker, you're very welcome to do that as well. Yeah, so that's Knit 1000 grams, and in that thread there is somebody is knitting a really beautiful yoke, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. I can picture the yoke. I just can't remember your name right now. So, but we had started talking about yoked jerseys and garments and the things that some of us would like to knit this year. And so we decided to start a yoke along over in the group. And that is why I'm wearing my Traister jersey today, as a celebration of yokes. So whips count as long as you still have part of the fancy part to knit. It doesn't have to be colour work, it could be lace or slip stitches or something like that. As long as there's a fancy bit around the yoke, then that all counts towards the cowl. And it will run between now and the 19th of September. I think that gives people plenty of time to finish a garment. It means that my southern hemisphere friends can get it done to be wearing for at least part of their winter, and my northern hemisphere friends will have garments ready for next winter, which is really exciting. I'm quite excited to go to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival and have a look for some yarn for some pretty colour combinations. I've been thinking about what I might want in my wardrobe, and I have a couple of patterns in mind. So yeah, and I've been drawing little sketches. One of the things I really like about yokes is, or colour work, a colour work yoke, is choosing the colours, and I like to get my coloured pencils out and draw little colour combinations and decide what it is that I might like to knit. I'm thinking though that this time I'd like to steek it and make the garment into a cardigan, because I think that will be more useful in my wardrobe. And so with a cardigan you can see more of the thing underneath, so maybe I'd like to knit something quite neutral. Yeah, anyway, I have these thoughts milling around in my mind, and people have already joined in the thread and talked about what they'd like to knit. Yeah, so if you'd like to knit a yoked jersey, pullover, sweater, cardigan, then pop over to the thread and come and join us. You're very welcome. I have a small pile of socks in front of me to talk to you about today, and the first pair are the finished Hairy Man socks. So this was sparkly opal yarn. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the sparkle. If I go like this a bit and just twist it back and forth, you might be able to. These are custom socks. I have based them on Kate Atherley's sizing recommendations. I took all the Hairy Man's foot measurements and calculated stitch counts and lengths and all of that sort of thing. So theoretically these should fit him perfectly. I've used a square heel because that's what I normally use for myself, and I usually use a square toe. This yellow is not Twisted Limone, it's Woolmise. It's Woolmise Pure. So there's no nylon in here, so this will be a bit of a wear experiment. I've made socks out of Woolmise Pure before, and I found that they wore just fine. I had no complaints about it at all. It is a superwash yarn, and it's quite finely spun. Usually I would use a swirl toe, but I have been experimenting. I think the thing that I like about the swirl toe is that the decreases aren't close together, and so it makes more of a three-dimensional shape. But I do like the symmetry of your normal rhombus shaped toes. So on this sock I decided to, can I show that? Well, I should have a sock blocker or something useful like that out. I decided to move the decreases further away from the edges. Let me make sure that's actually focusing in the right place. To move them further towards the middle, and I actually calculated it so that they would meet up in the middle of the sock. And I'm really interested to see how that will fit on his foot. He's somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, and so I can't try this on him right now. So when he gets back, we'll put these on and see how the heel and the toe and the sock fits him generally, and then I can make some decisions about the fit and construction of his next pair of socks. If you've been watching the last couple of episodes, you might have seen that I have resolved to do a bit more intentional making this year, and to make things we are needful of. And so the Hairy Man is needful of socks, so I'm supplying him with socks. I've got a lot of sock yarn, so I feel like I can fulfill that need. yeah, so those are the Hairy Man's first pair of socks for the year. My goal is to make 3 pairs. I think that seems like a, given that he has size 11 feet, that seems like a good resolution. There's a little bit of knitting in here. I've used the rib cuff because he likes his socks to stay up. Don't ask me what happened here with the stripe. Well, okay, you can ask what happened with the stripes. I didn't want to have that that thing where you change the colours and you get a little bit of colour in the next, that with the pearl bumps you get the colours mixing together. That was really inarticulate, but I hope you know what I mean. So, and I had seen online that if you do a row of the other colour just in just as plain knitting, then you can carry on with the ribbing in the stripe, and then do another row when you change colours again, just a knit round. Then you can avoid that. Except somehow my brain failed to realise that I was supposed to go back to knitting the ribbing. So I have stocking stitch stripes in there for no particular reason, and so I've gone for consistency. And I've done them on both socks the same, and I'm sure when they're on it will make no difference. It makes me feel like they look a little bit like rugby socks or something. So yeah, Hairy Man socks, first pair for the year, and as I say, when he comes back I shall have him put them on, see how they fit, and decide what to do for the next year. For the next pair, I've picked out yarn. I think I've picked out something that will be pretty hard wearing, and will wear well and be robust. The thing with Hairy Man socks is they have to be able to go through an industrial dryer, so he's not going to be precious about them. He does bring them to me as soon as they have the smallest, tiniest hole in them, so I can repair them. You know, a stitch in time saves 9 and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he is very knit-worthy when it comes to socks, but he's not going to be precious about the washing and wearing of his socks, and when he's offshore he doesn't really have a choice about that. So I think I've selected a good yarn for the next pair, and I shall talk about that when I cast them on. I have also been knitting a pair of the Pebbles and Pathways sock, which was a pattern that I was gifted by Mars of Hey Brown Berry. And am I right in thinking this is your first pattern? I've really enjoyed it. It's a toe-up pattern, although you can easily convert it to top-down, really easily. The stitch pattern would look pretty much the same, I think. But I hadn't knitted a toe-up sock, and it had my favourite Flegel heel in it, so I thought that I would do it that way. I haven't knitted a toe-up sock for a little while. I've just made a small shorty pair because I had this skein of Knit Picks Stroll in the Seashell Tonal colourway, and I think I'd used some of the yarn to swatch for something else, so I didn't have a full skein. So I thought I would make a shorty pair and have these as my first charity socks for the year. I decided to put the pattern on the back as well. I always associate stuff where the fancy bit is only on the front with cost cutting in the manufacturing process, and so as I'm knitting it myself I don't see the point in doing that, and so I think it looks really good with the pattern up the back as well. And I have cast on the second toe. Not that you really needed to see just a toe, but I've cast that on and it's all ready to go. And yeah, super fun. I like the little cable pattern because it's a little like having a self-striping element. You just sort of think, oh, I'll just do one more cable. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that. I like the yarn. It feels soft, and a lot of people have reported that it actually wears well. So I would be really interested to hear if you've knitted with Knit Picks Stroll. What did you think of it? I'd also like to know if you put it through your dryer. That would be really interesting because that would make it a yarn that I could use for Hairy Man socks. So if you've knitted with Stroll, I'd love to hear your experiences with it. I really have been going to town with the socks here this week. I had been knitting on Boverton, and I got to the end of the sleeve and put it in the wash just to see if all the wrinkliness would block out, and so that's just downstairs drying. So yeah, I've been cracking on with the socks, and I have been knitting on my sock tube. This is actually, let's see if I can get the whole thing in. So that's half the length. I think I'm going to get 2 pairs of socks out of this tube. So 100 grams of yarn. I just have to cast off. I've still got the knitting needle in there. I do a sew and cast off because that's nice and stretchy. So I think I'll get 2 pairs of socks out of this sock tube, and that they'll probably be about a size 3 or 4. I think I only casted on 60 stitches, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there are little orange spots in these white bits, and so I had thought that orange heels and toes would be rather nice, but I didn't really have a suitable yarn, so I thought about taking it with me to the Edinburgh Festival to see if I could find a mini skein there that would work well. And then I remembered that I had been given this mini skein last year. Amy Florence from Stranded Dye Works was at Edinburgh last year, and so I tootled over and introduced myself, and she gave me yarn. Which I was delighted about, but I think it'll look really nice with these stripes. So yeah, I'm just going to wind that up and go forth boldly, and I'm really excited to be using some yarn that I got from Edinburgh last year. So all of this stocking stitch also means that I have been reading, and this week's book is The New Animals by Pip Adam. This was a book that I found on the New Zealand Book Awards, and I thought it was a load of twaddle. It wasn't my cup of tea at all. It's the sort of thing that I probably would have had to read at university and then write a essay about the changing New Zealand economy and the imagery and stuff like that. It's set in Auckland in the New Zealand fashion industry, and it follows a handful of characters over the course of a day, and yeah, sort of it goes around each character and has a little bit of first person narration from the inside of their head. None of them inspire much sympathy. I think though that sometimes a character that you're not particularly sympathetic about can be quite compelling anyway, but these guys, I was just like, I wouldn't want to have a cup of tea with you. The whole storyline is basically stems from one of them being a bit of a dick and nobody just turns around and said, actually, that's impossible, you're being a bit of a dick. Yeah. And then, so it goes on over the course of the day, and then partway through, it goes on into this really surreal monologue, which I kept reading just to see if it would end, and it didn't. So, I didn't like it. It wasn't my cup of tea, and I'm not sure if it won the New Zealand Book Awards or not, but yeah, not my thing at all. That was going to be all for today, but I really want to show you the last pair of socks that I'm knitting. I'm working on a new sock design, and I'm just doing a prototype because I'm using a construction that I've not tried before. And I'm just using some yarn that I had in stash, not the yarn that I plan to use for the finish design. And so I'm going to show you this bit of a sock, and then you may not see this again for months and months, but I thought what would be fun is to talk about how this particular yarn wears. So this is the sock. This is as much as you're going to see of it for the time being. However, I am using this yarn, which doesn't tell you much about it. This is, let me get the label out. The brand is Onion Knit, and I think it's a Danish brand. It says made in Italy, but the company is based in Denmark. And so it's Onion Knit, and it's their nettle sock yarn. So the yarn is 70% superwash wool and 30% nettle fibres, and nettle fibre is a little like flax or linen in that it's a really long plant-based fibre that doesn't have a lot of elasticity. So I'm interested to see how these will wash and wear over time. Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I'm really excited to see how this yarn wears, really. Oh, actually, it would be interesting to make a swatch once I finish the socks and put it through the washer and the dryer to see how they hold up that way. I had forgotten that this was a super wash yarn until I looked at the label yesterday. I thought this was going to be a hand wash only job, which is no problem for my socks. But if they stand up well in a washer and dryer, then it would make it useful for hairy man socks as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about those, and I thought it would be interesting, given that I'm not going to show you these socks again for months, to see how they had worn over time. So yeah, I shall bring them back when the pattern is out and do a little yarn review. So that is me for today. My focus for this week, as normal, is going to be Boverton. I have the last sleeve to do, and then I just have to do all the edgings and steek and button bands, which is quite a lot. But yeah, I hope you're enjoying your knitting. Thank you for coming and spending a little bit of time with me, and if you enjoyed yourself, then please like and subscribe. Come and join us in the Ravelry group, and I shall see you next time. Cheerio!